We've got all these stories about big tech colluding for political reasons. DNC, Democratic officials reaching out to Twitter, things like that. But there was also information pertaining to restricting COVID. We recently saw a tweet. I think the Hodge twins tweeted at Elon and said, let me guess, you saw a tweet between the government and Twitter discussing censoring COVID information, and then he posted a trophy. So what's going on with that? You guys had something recently, right?
Yeah. So we've put out a number of things, a number of press releases that turn into kind of long articles folks can read through and see themselves, where we pull the documents, we get screenshots, screen grabs of the text, and let folks, hey, here it is. Here's so-and-so government official talking to so-and-so at this platform. We've put a few different things out, and we're putting these things out, and we're going to continue to do it on a rolling basis because it's the result of a lawsuit that we had to file against the government to get this data out. And so every time we get a batch of data, we're trying to pull out there, get the highlights, bring it to folks and let the American people see what was going on behind the scenes. So the latest thing that we have here, which is similar to something else we had, was this back channel reporting channel at Twitter, where government officials were able to log in and flag information that they deemed as misinformation for Twitter employees to purge from their system. The same thing existed at Facebook from the records that we've been able to see. We have an example of a woman who worked for the CDC who used her personal Twitter account. Twitter gave her, through her personal Twitter account, the ability to log in and flag misinformation and disinformation. And they actually encouraged her to do it because they said it was the best way to get something like that reviewed, which that in that case being the posts and the information they determined were misinformation. So look, that's just the top of the layer of the onion, though. There's so many layers beneath it between intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, nonprofit setup. There's a whole kind of regime that was built up around this misinformation, disinformation, thing. And they're using the government, they're using the powers of government, and they were using the powers of one of the biggest social media platforms out there to objectively define for the American people what was true and what was false.
When people from the government would flag something as dis or misinformation, are there instances where the people at Twitter would say, "Nah, it's not," and just ignore the?
So we haven't seen yet, and that's part of the problem, is that because these portals exist, some of these things are never going to be disclosed from government records. So it's great for the government actors to be able to do this because it obscures reality. There's no record to go back and check on. If you send an email or do something from a government computer, there's going to be a record that you're going to be able to go back and check. But because they were using a private platform's software, there's not going to be a way for us to be able to determine how much they actually flagged for these companies and what the companies actually did with it. What we do have examples of are examples of the private companies pulling down content. So we don't have examples yet that I'm aware of that we've seen where they've ever said, "Oh, hey, no, sorry, that we disagree with you on this." But we have seen examples of where the private platforms have said, "Yes, thank you. We're happy to do that. Can we do more for you? What else can we do for you, government?" It just in a really shocking way that I think most Americans would find truly offensive.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a tendency for governments across the history of time to hire external organizations to do dirty work, like mercenaries,
right?
Things like that. I just don't like seeing it turned on the people themselves by having government officials use their private accounts to have undocumented communications with my social media network that I've been using.
Right. No, I mean, it's exactly right. It's like one of the oldest plays in the book. And the thing about it is that, of course, the government can't do that legally. They can't violate the First Amendment through contracting their work out to a private company to do for them. That's against the law. You can't do that. So there's going to have to be some real accountability here. Luckily, there are some things moving that hopefully will bring that, one of which being a lawsuit that was filed by the states of Missouri and Louisiana, where they're deposing folks right now. I'm sure some of your viewers and listeners have been tracking that Elvis Chan was part of this lawsuit. He was just recently deposed. I think Jen Psaki's slated to be deposed at some point. Actually getting people in chairs, asking them the questions about what happened, what was going on here is going to be critical. And we'll see what happens as the result of the lawsuit, but it should shock the conscience of everyone, regardless of your perspective. It should shock your conscience that the government would be able to do this, especially when you look at what they were saying was false. In a lot of cases, later became actually, hey, actually, that wasn't false. And so this meaning of truth, this divorced reality of what's true and what's false, is an evolving thing for the government and for the left collectively. And it leads to a place where you can be censored as long as you're just not agreeing with what the current woke thought is. And with the COVID stuff, it was all over the place. We all lived it. We lived it for about 2 years.
Think about how crazy the legal system is in terms of perjury, like what we've learned, the true extent of it. I think perjury is a non-existent thing at this point, because what we have here is, Mr. Dorsey, do you shadow ban? We don't. You don't. No, you don't remove people without their knowledge. We visibility filter. So what? What did you say the other day? I don't know if it was you. It was like, did you stab this man? No, I placed a knife inside his body.
That was Luke said that.
That was Luke.
he put his chest all around my blade.
Do you have a door to your building? No, we have a portal, and there is a vertical slat of wood with a grip on it.
So dodging semantics is a form of perjury. I think we can be clear about that. Anthony Fauci said they didn't do gain of function. James Clapper said he had no witting knowledge of spying on the American people, even though PRISM showed that they did.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, he said we didn't do gain of function research. What we did was manipulate viruses to make them more deadly and dangerous. It's like,
and transmissible to human beings.
And then Rand Paul,
that's what gain of function
the
is.
same exact one that just naturally got out there because someone ate a bat in China.
Rand Paul holds up the paper and he's like, it says right here that you were doing gain of function. And he goes, no. It says on the paper, no. And where's Fauci? Yeah. He's on MSNBC and they're like, I can't believe Elon would say prosecute Fauci. I can. He lied to Congress. Man, like when it comes to this stuff, they all just lie. We watch them lie. We know they're lying. They know, we know they're lying. We know they know we know they're lying. And we're all just staring at each other like nothing will change.
And then people get charged. People get charged for lying under oath. People get charged for lying to Congress. Look what happened to Oliver Stone. He went down. He went to jail. Yeah. Because he lied to Congress. Well, Fauci could do it. Brennan could do it. Come on. Let's play fair here. Let's actually hold people accountable to what they said, to how they lied to the American people, and how they screwed them over.
Oh, you're talking about Roger Stone, not Oliver Stone.
Sorry, I apologize. Roger Stone.
Oliver Stone, great. We should have him on the show.
We should have, yeah. I interviewed him before, too. I don't always agree with him. Fascinating guy. He interviewed Putin, has a lot of context specifically about Russia and Venezuela that I definitely see differently than him. But it would be great to have him on the show and have that conversation. Apologies for my mistake.
Yeah, Oliver. The reason we have a government for the people, by the people, is because if the people that we put in charge start lying to us, we're supposed to remove them from office and then maintain balance and honesty and integrity in our system. Maybe the whole system has always been predicated on lies. Maybe.
Yes.
And we just want to close our eyes and believe that they're doing the right thing when we put them in power to lie for us.
You know, I imagine it like this. Pre-radio, you had people who hung out in their own communities, talked to each other and trusted each other, and they did not trust, for the most part, centralized media distribution. Mm-hmm. The printing press, relatively new in the, newish in the before the American Revolution. Then they started using this to put out propaganda, being like, we should be independent. It affects people, they hear it. But for the most part, your life is still very much, I'm going to do it. The Patriot with Mel Gibson. What a good movie. They're in their house, and then a postal rider comes, and they're like, there's a letter. Whoa, like words come from town. And then everyone gathers around to read this one letter. Now it's like I get 50 billion on Twitter. But so back then, you believed what you believed or you didn't. You saw what you saw or you didn't. Mm-hmm. And there was no centralized communication grid. Then you got radio and TV. And all of a sudden, well, actually, even before that, you had the massive national distribution of newspapers, which started getting really, really big in the late 1800s. And then the turn of the century, everyone's now believing the papers. Then everyone's believing the radio. Then everyone's believing the TV. And it's all centralized. And it was probably all lies. But we believed it because that's what we were told.
The radio.
Now the internet comes out, and we once again are decentralizing our flow of information. And we're getting into this revolutionary period, I guess.
The radio changed it all. It did, because and I remember Orson Welles did that War of the Worlds radio show, and the people actually believed it was real, that aliens were attacking. It was so believable. On the radio is this new technology. They went outside. I heard that people killed themselves because they thought we were under attack by aliens. I don't know if that's confirmed. But then video comes, or film. And film allows the centralization of power for Hitler. Like Hitler is the result of that centralization of power with that mass media mind control technique. Now we have the internet, and it's like we have both centralization and decentralization kind of at odds or coming at each other and trying to figure out the best way to have like localized, decentralized, centralized systems.
Well, this is why you end up with who is that woman who did the musical number about disinformation? You know what I'm talking about?
Jankowicz.
Yeah. This is why you get these people, because they know they're lying. It's why you get people like Taylor Lorenz and Ben Collins. They know they're lying. Of course they do. Mm-hmm. They know they're making up things, but they're doing it in service of the authoritarian narrative machine. These are people who long for a world where, like was it Mika Brzezinski said? Is that how you say her name? Mika? Micah? Where she said, it's our job to tell people what to think. She was like, Trump thinks he can tell people what to think. That's our job. And then Snopes immediately comes out to debunk the claims that she said it when she literally said it. But that's not what she means. What they want is, they want to go on TV and say, the sky is red. And then have everyone be like, whatever you say, boss. And the problem is now with the internet, we all start posting online. Well, the sky can be red sometimes, depending on the sunset, but for the most part, it's blue. So they're actually just manipulating you. And then someone says, you're so dumb, the sky is red. It's 7 p.m. at sunset. It's like, dude, I know. And then you argue. But that argument is part of the nuance in the conversation they don't want. Yeah. They want to say, no, it's red. Stop talking about it. Anybody who thinks the sky is blue, report to your education center.
You've got to know that people are not built to fall in line. I mean, there's part of us that we're definitely community-based organisms, but we're not, like, you can't force people into slavery. It doesn't make sense. It never has worked in the history of humanity. We've always come away from it.
Worked for a while.
Well, if you look at human history, there's a lot of slavery. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of destruction. There's people like Genghis Khan. There's individuals that try to conquer the world and control all of it and try to have all of it for themselves. So that's common. That always has happened. And for us to think that this has somehow left the human experience, I think it's foolish. And I think there's a lot of other smarter people out there that are still going for these same goals. We just don't know about them. We don't hear about them. And they're going for these larger personal achievements for themselves in secret.
It's like the spirit of Moses is to free the slaves, and like the spirit of the United States, the Statue of Liberty is a freed slave. But the businessmen that got the Statue of Liberty put up there didn't want to show the chains on our wrists. They were like, no, we can't remind people that we're freed slaves. We want them to forget.
They're on our feet, right?
Yeah, so they put the chains down at her feet where you can't see it because you're looking up at it. But if you look at it from above, you see broken chains. She's a freed slave. The French understand liberty as the Americans do, but the businessmen don't. They don't like that. They want us to lull back into just worshiping some erudite. They want us to think, oh, she's studied, so she's great. No, she's great because she was a freed slave. She will never go back.
Isn't it like everybody's related to Genghis Khan or something, or like some huge number?
1/7 of the world, I think, is
because he was banging a lot of chicks. You know what I mean? Yeah. He was going around taking villages and taking the women.
I think it's like 1/3 in Asia.
Everybody.
I think that it's like history. We go into slavery and then we come out of it, and then we go back into it and we come out of it, and we're trying to remind ourselves not to go back into it. Yeah, that's the story of America, of the United States. Do not fall back into monarchy. Do not fall back under the subservience of one man in a corporation. Don't do it.
It's not. I don't know if monarchy is the right word, but we fall into something new we haven't yet defined. Right. So we have these words to describe things that we probably didn't describe when they were initially conceived of. When feudalism first came into existence, there wasn't some guy who looked around and went, this is feudalism. It was like the way things were. And then eventually we start to define these things. So whatever we're in now, it is not democracy. It is not constitutional republicanism. It's something totally different. I mean, it could just be a quasi, revolutionary state where you've got, as we've talked about on the show, a multicultural democracy trying to exist within a constitutional republic, and they're both at odds with each other. And so they're conflicted. But it's certainly not one or the other, and you can't describe it that way. Maybe we'll corporate technogopoly. We'll come up with some new word for it. Like communism was a word that was coined. Fascism was a word that was coined. Can we make up a new word for whatever it is we're going through? Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.